Welcome to the IRAQAFELLA show. Actually, you know what?
It's the IRAQAFELLA show with special guest Noah 40 Shebib.
Noah, what up? What up?
What's going on, my brother? How are you?
I'm good, man. It's good to see you, man. I haven't seen you in a couple of years. I saw you.
I don't feel like I haven't seen anyone in a couple of years.
Haven't we all not seen anyone in a couple of years?
I mean, I also made an album, so that's like double whammy for like not seeing people and just, spending a lot of time in this room. So
yeah, I definitely want to get into the process of CLB and what it was. But I wanted to ask you, the last time I saw you, I think we were backstage in Toronto at the Scorpion show, and you were working on that box that you had created, which I want to get into as well, which was amazing. But before we do that, I wanted to know how has the last 2 years been for you during this pandemic? Like, what have you been doing?
I mean, it's funny. Like, I'm not the guy that like goes out to dinner a lot, or I keep to myself. I like to spend a lot of time in the studio and like working on my craft and working on equipment and electronics and music. And there's like so many things I want to do. So it didn't really like in the beginning, it was so shocking to people, right? But for me, it was kind of like, obviously I'm blessed and privileged in that regard as well because of my situation. But like more so than that, like I'm very solitary in the first place, right? Like and that happens too, with being on the journey with Drake also, where it's kind of like, you don't always want to like go out in public every second of the day. So it's like, it was an easy adjustment for me, I guess. And I've just been hiding out here working, and as things start to get better and open up, I'm looking forward to it. But I spent a lot of time up north, like on property, doing like farm shit, excuse my language, staying out of trouble. Like in the
curse, don't worry about it. The pandemic did two things for people, especially artists. Like, you're a public figure, but you're not in public, which is amazing to be a producer. There's no age limit, and there's no necessary reason for you to be out in front of the camera.
Yeah, it's nice.
What it did was it created two different, either like it made you go to therapy and deal with your demons, or it made you get rid of old habits and like function a bit better.
Yes, I agree completely.
Yeah. What did it do for you in that regards? Like what did you change in your lifestyle? What did it make you realize?
Gosh, I mean, it really like reaffirmed a lot of my politics and who I am, to be honest, right? For a lot of people got hit with like a culture shock where it's like, oh, the government doesn't care about us. Nothing makes any sense. And I'm sort of sitting here like, wait, you just got to that place now? Like, huh? So for me, it was sort of, where it was like an eye opener for a lot of people. My experience was just like reaffirming what I believe in. And I'm a very like science and math oriented individual, like what I do in this room is science and math all day long, right? Electrical engineering all day long, like, down to changing capacitors, right? So it's like, it was okay for me. I could fathom it all. And unfortunately, my health isn't as great as I'd like it to be. I'm on pretty heavy immunosuppressant medication. So, in the beginning, we didn't know much. It was like really scary. And, as it progressed, things got better. And like, yeah, I mean, I made an album. Like, when I make an album, I'm gone, So like, it doesn't really matter what's happening outside of like that process, right? Like that's how focused I am. Yeah. So, I mean, I just came out of that a couple months ago, and I'm like actually like still recovering from the whole experience, right? So
it was like a month ago. It wasn't even a couple of months.
Yeah, I wouldn't even know. I mean, like, I'm still like learning how to like think again. When you work really hard on like creative things like that, and it's like extraction, right? Like letting go of something at the very end of a process is really difficult, and it's not a lot of sleep, a lot of changes, a lot of stress, and I love to do it. It's one of those things where it's like, you do something that's really, really difficult, and in the moment you're kind of like, why did I do this? Like, what's wrong? And then later you're like, man, that was great, that was sick,
I'm sure you're tweaking snares till the midnight oil is done burning. I know.
Oh yeah. Forever. So.
When Certified Lover Boy was first announced, it was a while ago. I think, I don't remember if it was like pre-pandemic or during the pandemic, but it was a long pre-rollout to the album. And obviously, albums get delayed and production gets delayed, but you know, Drake has become synonymous with like a specific season in the year. I would say like mid to end of summer into the winter. Like the rollout is always that, and sometimes you guys even drop in the middle of the winter just to give some light in the darkness, right? But how did the process with CLB differ from other albums? Did it feel different at this time?
I think, you know, that really is just, I mean, the pandemic obviously had a lot to do with it, right? Like we were really gearing up to sort of get ready to close it out. It's sort of like it's like a marathon, you know, making an album. Excuse me. And you got to sort of save that gas for the last 100 meters, right? And so it was just like a matter of like, hey, when are we going to sprint the 100 meters? And, you know, I think there was a while there where he was probably prepared to do it. And then the pandemic hit and it was sort of like, okay, let's just, you know, see how things unfold. And it was sort of an interesting time to be, you know, dropping music so quickly like that. So ultimately, though, it's dictated by the music. There's no plan, not from my perspective anyway. And I can't speak on all of that, right? Like I'm only part of that machine. But like from my perspective, it's just the music. Like when the music's ready and he's comfortable to pull the trigger, he pulls the trigger. And so whenever that is. I mean, I don't know, probably like the summer or the beginning of the summer would be like the best option. But you know, it's difficult to like to land there when exactly when you want to, you know. So I mean, you know. Yeah, I don't put that much thought into that type of stuff. I like everything in this business or in music business. I feel it's driven by the music itself.
Yeah, for sure. You're credited as like, you know, the architect of many of the projects that come out under OVO. I know your ear is on everything, and you hear everything, and you mix a majority of the projects, and like, you know, you have your hand in a lot of the different projects that come out on the label. And if you were to look at some of the artists on the label, you're almost like the composer to the film of those artists' life. Specifically Drake, I would say you're like the composer to that film, you know? You guys have this work ethic that's very symbiotic. Like we've seen pictures from the beginning, from the mixtape when it dropped, you know, you guys in the hotel in Hollywood until this day when we see you in the studio. It always feels like you know, De Niro and Pacino back together, right? So as you guys progressed and saw less and less of each other, because, you know, Drake was touring around the world, things were growing exponentially really quickly. Does the process feel as natural when you get into the studio right away, or does it take a little bit of time to get back into gear, you know?
Good question. Yeah, no, 100% it does. Like it takes no time to get back into gear. You know, I mean, I still do all the things that I've sort of always done with and for Drake from the very beginning. The only difference is I just do it from a distance now. That's it. And because of the way technology is, it's a phone call, right? Like I know when Noel, who's Drake's engineer now, opposed to me being the one who's there in the room with him at all times, which is really what the change we're talking about is, right? At one point, when I let go of being his engineer always, and then Noel took that position, that's when I was able to remain here and not have to follow him around the world at all times, right? So
was it hard to let go?
100%. It was the hardest thing ever to let go. But that enabled me to do more things here, because at the end of the day, recording, and Noel's blossomed his production career incredibly from that seat, but recording is like a tireless, endless job, right? It's very difficult to spend your time efficiently when you're carrying that position. So when I step back to be able to, you know, help run the label and do other things and so on and so forth, that's sort of when that change happened. But everything is the same. So it's like, yo, they're recording and it's like, sending this right now. Cool. Yep. Send it right back. Yep. Done. You know, I send the references to Drake. You like this? You want to change this? We're just talking about it. So it's, you know, not much has changed. You know, I built a big studio at his house and he works there and he comes here still. He loves coming here to the studio here. It's like, it's pretty good. And I don't think that'll ever change because we sort of grew up together in the business and learned how to do this together. And everything I do is defined by working with and for him. You know, I don't really have anybody else that I work with on that level. So, or really at all. So, I mean, I don't know, I don't really do anything else. So when I get back to that place, it's the same thing I've been doing the whole time. You know what I mean? It's not like I've gone to do so, you know?
Muscle memory.
And I think for him, it's like, you know, I understand what he needs in the studio, and he knows I understand that. So when we're actually in the same room, it's just better than being apart, you know? But like it never stopped. You know what I'm saying? So like now we're just when we're in the same room, it's like, oh, okay, perfect. We can move quicker.
Well, you guys have been on a tear for a long time. Like OVO has been, consistent for a minute. And you were just saying that it allowed you, taking away time from being an engineer allowed you to focus on the label more. And what other roles do you enjoy doing besides being, technical and obviously creative with the music? What other roles do you enjoy doing on the label with OVO?
I usually stay out of the way of like not all marketing, but photo shoots, and I'll weigh in on videos. I'll weigh in on photo shoots all the time. I have my opinions about album covers, but like that's not really where I like to lean in. I like to obviously am involved in the technical side of things and the studios and the touring, and I'm involved in the production and the creation, and then with a lot of the artists, and I'll help there and mixing and so on. And then it's business. Like I love the bigger picture business stuff and understanding it, because like
What do you mean by business? Like the numbers and the analytics, or
yeah, it's like running the company, right? Like running a successful company, doing good business, doing good deals that people look back and are like, yeah, like I'm glad we did that. Like, I don't feel taken advantage of. Like, I'm okay with how this worked out, And just feeling that way about the things you're doing with your partners and other people that you're involved with, like that's the best. And it's not always easy. I mean, like that's the goal, right? That's what I'm striving to in that space, but I want to make sure of that as well as the music, that's also happening. That's really important to me. And I'm not like the biggest fan of capitalism in the world, like I'm much more like to share and have everybody involved in things. And so just the fundamental way the music business is run, I have a major problem with.
Yeah,
like major problem. So like I'm existing within the confines of that, and so I want to fight all the way one direction, but you have to move sort of slowly, unfortunately, but I'm moving, but anyway, the point is like, it's a tough business, right? Like the whole concept of it is owning other people's intellectual property in exchange for essentially giving them money and resources, right? So it's sort of like, okay, I get it. I mean, we have to all be involved and they have to make money for giving us money too, but I don't know. I just don't
how do you see that? How do you see that changing? Because even when it came to like questions of capitalism and how racism is tied to it, and how
blockchain end to user, right? When it starts working that way, when that really becomes a reality, that'll change things, and that'll box the big majors out of it. It won't be like kabillionaires that are controlling that side of the business, right? At the end of the day, the business is still organic.
Yeah.
It is a myth that it's like controlled by Illuminati or something, right? That's not actually true, right? It's organic.
Are you sure about that?
Yes. Yeah, I am. But it's unchecked capitalism, right? Yeah, so it will do what it does in the name of the dollar. So, I mean, at that rate, is it poisonous? Like, yeah, probably, right? But it's not necessarily like malicious, right? It just is what it is. And it is art. And art, there's another conversation there about free speech and art and this, and it's a big conversation about what the industry is, and I'm sensitive to that, but I would just love to see it going to the people on the ground doing the work more so. There's these streaming companies are getting incredibly powerful, the labels are incredibly powerful, and the writers, the people who actually create the content, are not as powerful. So, things have gotten better in the business because of streaming and income streams growing and, new revenue streams and so on. But, without me talking too much about that, that's how I feel about the business. So,
outside of music, you've been at.
Oh, no, what I was really saying is that because I'm in this business and subject to it, I try my best to navigate it well for the people that I bring onto this journey, because it does change lives and it does make people fortunes and it does bring people happiness. And so I don't want to neglect people from that opportunity because I'm pessimistic about the nature of the business. I mean, it is what it is. And I just happen to also be a musician. So that's the tough part about being like an artist and an executive at the same time, but I am somehow both. So
How do you you got the way you've discovered artists? Let's say we had Major Jordan on last week, and the way you discovered them was through SoundCloud and the link being passed at the time, right? So like, how do you keep your ear to the ground and like hear artists that are coming up? Is it something that comes to you, or are you?
It's tough, and that's changing. As the industry opens up more and more, there's more and more and more music. There's more content. There's more people making music, right? You don't need a studio. You don't need this. You can do it with your iPhone now. You don't even need a microphone, really, right? So since that's changed, it's more difficult to like seed through what's in front of you to see if there's anything on the table there, like from the street or from demos or whatever the case may be. So that I think is become a little more difficult, but in the beginning with Maja Jordan, they were passed to me from a friend, and it was really incredible. And I loved this mixtape they had, and they did it all by themselves, and I couldn't believe they did it in their dorm room. And I was like, oh, this is incredible. You guys do it again. They kept making more music, and they were incredible ideas. And I just recognized that they had an incredible amount of talent. But really, the best stuff will rise to the top.
Yeah.
If the songs are really that good, it'll find its way.
Yeah.
And maybe if I get to it, it'll be there faster. Yeah. Sure. Right? Like even say someone like Abel, my friend Poiser brought it to me, but via my friend Jimmy, because they were all in my neighborhood, and I think Abel was living in the neighborhood at the time, like right beside Jimmy, and Jimmy's like, yo, there's this kid who's living next door. It's like, he's crazy, and he's giving it to Poiser. Poiser's giving it to me, and I'm like, yeah. It never made it all the way. And those things are difficult, right? Like I always, not to sidetrack, me and Drake always remember when Jazz played that stuff for Wayne, we knew you have to get that guy's real attention, like sit down, listen to this. Like it's not easy, So anyway, he didn't get to me there. He got to Oliver later. The point is like, if it's good, it's gonna get there.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who.
Definitely.
What mattered was Abel, not whoever found it, us, him, who cares? If the music's good, it goes. So really like, I like finding things as early as possible, but like for me, I'm just happy that good music gets to where it's supposed to go. And I feel like in today's day and age with streaming and the ability to put things online and TikTok and all this different mediums, like
the game's changed.
Stuff to go.
It's changed. Outside of music, Noah, I know you're a big advocate for MS awareness.
Yes.
You've been public about living with your condition.
Yes.
And I want to take this time here, this platform to talk about what the misconceptions around MS are and what you hope to achieve like in your lifetime in the sense of awareness for people. I know it's a big part of your life. So
yeah, I mean, like, look, what I'll say is I think MS is a tough one. Not a lot of people know about it. So I like to, a lot of people know about it. It's a pretty major disease out in the world, but what I guess, they don't understand it. They've heard of it maybe. I like to be an inspiration. I don't want to use that word, but like someone that people with the disease can look at and be like, wow, he's had this disease since he was 21 years old, and these are our experiences, and he's been open about them, and like, well, I can do that too. Okay, I can manage this. Like there's a way to do it, and everybody's different, and it's not a monolithic disease by any means, but I think we all have our ups and downs as people with my type of MS, which is remitting relapsing, which means things happen and they go away. The other type is that things happen and they don't go away. So that's obviously much more difficult to live with and grave outcome. But for me, because I have remitting relapsing, it's it's much more manageable for myself. Although, you know, the reality is that eventually it becomes, or we hope not, but eventually it goes to the other place, right? Which is called progressive. So, you know, I take great medication. There's new medication now that's actually changed my life. It's, you know, there's lots of DMTs, disease modifying therapies. So it's different ways to treat people with MS that are really incredible these days. So I've been on this drug now for almost 2 years, and it's pretty much like brought me back to a place that I haven't been since I was probably 20. So, you know, I'm more than blessed right now in my journey with multiple sclerosis. And it's funny, like when I first got diagnosed, I spent my 22nd birthday in the hospital, and I'll never forget the doctor. I looked at him and was like, yo, how long do I have to take these meds? Because I used to take an injection 3 times a week. It was horrible. It was horrible. People are always joking about the vaccine and side effects. I'm like, yo, dude, are you crazy?
You're like, yeah,
I had to take a needle 3 times a week. But it made me violently ill for 24 hours. It gave me immunoresponse, right? For 24 hours. I would be bedridden, like couldn't get out of bed. So I went from having a 7-day week to a 4-day week because I lost 3 days. So like that's how violent that medication was. And I had to inject it myself. And so people are crying about a vaccine. I'm like, yo, dude, are you crazy? I should do that 3 times a week. Because relax, you'll be fine. But you know, when you start to understand what immunoresponses are to medications. Anyway,
yeah, I mean, listen.
yeah. So I took that medicine. Then why was I telling you about that medicine? God damn it. Anyway, whatever. It's been a crazy journey. Oh, getting diagnosed. The doctor told me. I said to him, how long do I have to take this medication? And he looked at me and said, until they invent something better. And that was the truest thing someone ever said to me about my journey with that disease, which is that, you know, over the past however many years, it's been 17 almost, holy smokes, things have gotten better for me, luckily, because of treatment and medication and so on and so forth. And I diet and taking care of myself and cutting bad things out of my life and making changes like not being a superstar beside Drake traveling around the world, but taking care of myself and sleeping at an appropriate hour. Hence why I am no longer the engineer, everybody.
No,
But yes, that was a difficult decision because all the way it wasn't mine.
But it helped, you know?
No, it did. And that's why I'm doing really well. And so that's my journey. And yes, I guess what your question was is my goal is to teach people about it, sure, to bring awareness to it, but more so just to be like, you know, to be visible for the people who are on this journey. And you know, people hit me up all the time, like, oh, I just got diagnosed and And it's like, you know, I respond to as many people as I can, and I try to give guidance to as many people as I can, and you know, that's sort of why I'm visible in that space. Honestly, for that specific reason.
You know, it's you talked about the vaccines when you were younger. When I was a kid, I had horrible asthma. Like it hospitalized me, you know, very often, and my parents had to give me a course of medication of. Like I was taking shots every 2 weeks to like strengthen my allergic asthma to things that were around me that were like dust. Like I was allergic to things that were around us that you can't see, you know? So when everything hit 2 years ago, I sucked out of society. I stayed home. I became super paranoid. It heightened my paranoia and isolation, right? And I think like a lot of the trauma that I had from my childhood, from the incidents of asthma, came back to me that I hadn't dealt with. You know, I started thinking about the possibility of being hospitalized for not being able to breathe, right? And as artists, we channel much of that trauma into what we do. And you've, with your career, you've done what some people would say is almost the impossible. Like you've worked with everybody in the world, all the GOATs. Like you've done it. You're a legend in your own right. So do you think that like having having MS changed the way that you work and approach your work? Like, do you work harder now? Like, take advantage of the time on the ground when you're working?
Yeah, maybe. You know, I actually probably got my nickname before I got, like a matter of weeks before I got diagnosed, which is 40 days and 40 nights, because I wouldn't sleep and I would just work forever. And I think I guess the analogy I'll give you is I walk really fast. And people are always like, why do you walk so fast? And my answer is always because I can right now. And sometimes I can't. So when I can walk really fast, like I'm walking fast. And so when I got out of the hospital when I was 22, I couldn't walk. So I was in a wheelchair for a bit. Then I was heavy on a cane, like stepping 3 inches at a time, right? Like in front of each foot. So it's like honestly, like, 90-year-old grandparents are like flying past me in the malls, you know what I mean? And like in the park, I'm getting beat by like, grandpa and grandma, right? It was like so funny. But like, I was really slow. So as I got stronger and sort of dealt with that episode, I walk really quickly, and sometimes that episode reoccurs. So I often was walking with a cane for months of the year, and then I got down to walking with a cane for 6 weeks to 2 months of the year, and then I went on my new medication, and I haven't touched it since. So.
It's crazy because I walk really fast too. Everybody tells me I walk too fast. So that's another
But
thing.
that probably is an analogy for how it affected my career. I started working really hard because you just sort of, MS is a disease where it's of your nervous system. So, I mean, that's everything. That's your entire brain, right? The communications of your brain and everything. So therefore, it could be anything. Like, could my hand stop working? Like,
Yeah.
possibly, right? Like it could be something you can see that's clinical. It could be something you can't see, right? Where you don't know something stopped working. So, I mean, whatever the case is, it gives you a drive where, you are concerned to make sure you get as much done as you can, especially since it was at a time where, there was a lot of uncertainty in my life financially for me and my family. So I think, and that's probably what drove me the most was, looking at realities, at financial realities are what made me work so incredibly hard. And then getting MS, made it like, I guess, hypersensitive, both literally and figuratively. In the case of like, I had no choice. I had to figure it out because I didn't have a safety net to fall back on. And things were not looking good for me if I found myself in a position where I couldn't work. So.
Yeah, last time I saw you actually was for another interview that I did with you and your sister about the Justice Fund, which we'll get into. We talked about the family, so if people want to hear that, it's online, you can find it. But also the last time I saw you, I was like, damn, I got a lot in common with this guy. But, we both lost our hair, we both have beards, we're both very attached to our Arab identity. And then you passed me something, which was the Afghan Bull Rider, and you were in the early stages of announcing Bull Rider, the company that you're a part of, cannabis strain company. And since we're here giving you your flowers, can you tell me how that plant has been a healing force for you and why you got involved in that?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been around cannabis for a large part of my life. I mean, for better or for worse. And I came across a very specific strain that is just very different than everything else. I always tell people like, there's cannabis and then there's the Afghani Bull Rider, which is a really sort of unique strain. It doesn't smell like anything else. It doesn't taste like anything else. It doesn't look like anything else.
I could not move after that. I couldn't even speak.
It's fairly strong, but it's actually not, right? Like as far as THC goes, it's on the lower scale. And for me, it's like an Energizer battery. It's like it enlightens me to keep working and keep going at all times. Like my body enjoys it. When I smoke other things, smoking is terrible, right? Like it's a carcinogen and it's not, something we want to do to ourselves. But at the same time, for the most part, when I smoke things, it's like my body's telling me like, hey, not a good idea. Like, that's probably not what you want to do. But when I smoke Afghani Bull Rider, it's just like, it's very happy. It's great. It's fantastic. My it definitely enjoys it. So, I mean, it's like a primal instinct that, tells you like, oh, this is good for you. We like this, and like, I'll clean the whole house and I'll finish the whole album and I'll do anything, it doesn't necessarily put me to sleep. So it's sort of a really special thing and therapeutic and great medicine. And, they say that, marijuana slows the development of multiple sclerosis, and it's one of its number one uses is MS and has a lot of great effects for MS. And because of the sort of plethora of side effects. Not so much with my new medication, but with my old medication, as I was saying. Cannabis was replacing like 10 drugs they tried to give me, right? They were like, oh, you're going to need this other 10 supplementary pills to handle the injection you give yourself every day, right? So it's like, no, I can use cannabis for all of that. So it's been an incredible medicine through my journey of dealing with MS and dealing with the medications they give you for MS. And so finding Bull Rider was like, oh my God, a weed that my body likes, like at all times, And it's like, it's really airy. A lot of trees like really tense.
Yeah.
It's like you break it open, and it's like dense and like sticky, and it's like little balls when you're trying to. Bull Rider is like big and fluffy. It's like, it's like crushes into like magic, And so in Ontario, we were selling Afghani Bull Rider with our Bull Rider company that we've started with the grower Jeff Tech, who has been, caring for and developing that strain for decades. And unfortunately, when we tried to scale it up, it wasn't as high quality as what I am explaining to you. It was the same strain, it was the same thing, and it was close. But in the end, after sort of producing our first run of it, I decided with the team that like, let's wait on it. We'll get it right. And we're opening our new flagship store in Brampton, which is right outside of Toronto. And
Magic happens in Brampton, bro.
Yeah, lots of stuff happens in Brampton. Listen, anyway, it's an on-site grow there. So there's a hash lab and a grow op in the store. So it's like a farm to table model. And so those plants there are going to be grown by Jeff essentially, right? Like with his direct counsel and guidance, and not instead of being grown in a large facility. So what we're hoping is that is going to turn around product that is what I'm talking about, which is Jeff's actual real Afghani Bull Rider. And then that'll be like at a very limited smaller level out of the Brampton store. And if we can get to the point where we can successfully scale it up, so be it. But, my goal isn't to sell marijuana. Like, I'm great in life, right? Like I told you, I don't even really like capitalism in that regard. But what I will say to you is one of the greatest things in my life was giving people that medicine. You give people Bull Rider and they were like, wow, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And that feeling was like, I wanted to give that medicine to people. And part of the story is a lady named Michelle Rainey, who is Jeff's wife. And Michelle was pretty big deal in the cannabis industry. She was like partnered with Mark Emery in a lot of things. She's like covered High Times multiple times. She passed away, unfortunately. And one of her dying wishes was to like deliver Afghani Bull Rider to people who need it. And she was like, Jeff really developed it and cared for that strain for her. It's an incredible story. The legacy of that strain goes back a long time, and it's really special. Anyway, so that's why I want to get it to people, because it's great. Hopefully I can like do some good things with that money, which is like another conversation about philanthropy, which is all backwards and messed up, and I don't really subscribe to. But I mean, again, here we are, right?
Listen, man, shout out to cannabis. You know what I'm saying?
Shout it out.
That's all I got to say about that. So listen, we're at the halfway point. At the halfway point of the show, I like to ask some round robin questions that I think, give a lot of insight into the individual that we have on the show. So first off, top 5 producers. And they don't have to be permanent top 5, but top 5 producers.
DJ Premier.
Always.
DJ Quick.
Wow.
Diamond D. Oh, I got too many though, man. Can I go more?
You can go
I got
more.
so many.
Top 10. That's 3.
Buckshot.
Wow.
No, Buck Wild, sorry. I was just talking about, I had a long boot camp click conversation yesterday. My bad, Buck Wild.
Le Fla.
Tim. I love Tim. He's real special.
Timbo.
Gosh, I hate these questions because, like, I asked for more than 5 because I wanted to be able to, like, get as many on the list as you can, but
but you don't need to be democratic, bro. It's just us.
I know, but you don't do the answer justice. These justice need like real thought into them. You know what I'm saying? But no, definitely Primo, Quick, Diamond D, Buck Wild. Those guys are special. Q-Tips is really incredible.
Top 5 MCs without Drake.
Rakim, Kane, Nas, Cool G Rap, OC.
Top 5 VSTs.
Instruments or effects plugins?
Let's say effects plugins. Like when you're mixing something, what are the 5 things that you go to all the time? Unless you don't want to give away that secret. That's, you know what I mean?
No, I like giving away secrets. Almost all the FabFilter stuff. So FabFilter L2, FabFilter Q3, which is the EQ. Vitamin by Waves.
Love Waves.
Arvox.
Arvox.
Arvox is just like a go-to.
Classic.
Super clutch.
Nerd.
Arvox and Q3 are like pretty much all you need to do a lot of damage on a vocal. Limitless. It's a killer these days.
That's that nerd talk for people that are tuned in. Favorite song you produced?
You played some good ones today. I always forget what I produced. I make so much music.
Listen, that Alicia Keys joint is crazy.
Yeah, Alicia joint's really, really incredible.
Sade joint is crazy.
The Sade joint, yeah. I always have mixed feelings about that. That's really tough doing a song with Sade, you know?
Jay-Z at the same
I know. Well, that's why it became more difficult because there was an original version that I loved, right? And then I gave it to Hove, and Hove loved it. And then I gave it to Sade, and Sade was like, man,
it's Sade.
So I was like, shit, okay. So I made the changes, took Sade's comments, went back to Sade. She's like, I love it. I'm like, yes, go back to Jay-Z. He's like, maybe I like the other one more. Change this. Like, fuck, okay. Change this, change that. You know, anyway, it's like 2 months later, I'm like, oh, the record's dead, right? Then 2 more months go by. Then I'm like, wait, did I just let a Sade Jay-Z record die in my arms? Like, what is going on? Like, I kept going, you know? Finally, I get a version. They're both like, oh, we both love it. And I'm like, oh, incredible. I don't know if I love it anymore, you know? Shit. But, you know, so we made it happen. Anyway, in hindsight, it's great. I do like it. And whenever, like, any of the guys play it, when they're DJing or something and I'm around, I'm always like, oh, it's cool, man. It's a special moment.
You did a joint with Sade. It doesn't matter if it was just kicks. Like, you did a joint with Sade.
I know. But I'm forever haunted by the Pharrell remix, man. It's just, the By Your Side remix is just like the greatest piece of music of all time. Shout out Pharrell. I should have put him on that list. You know, that's that, and Chad probably was involved in that one. I would bet that remix, that Sade remix is just life-changing, and it just, you know, hangs over my head.
My last question would be, like, my last gunshot question would be, what's the biggest mistake you may have made that made you learn or became a blessing in the game? Like something that happened that you thought, like, fuck, why did I do that? And then it turned around and became like a lesson that stayed with you until today. Is that something you can think of? Because I'm sure, you know, from the outside looking in, everybody thinks it's all like easy and shit is like, but it's like, you know, there's 85,000 mixes of Fire and Desire out there. So like something that taught you something really big in the game that we might learn from.
I don't know. I've learned so many lessons in both directions these days. I don't even know, you know, it's like you learn something and then you unlearn it, you know, and then you learn it again. Yeah. I'm trying to answer your question the right way though, as far as like a lesson that I learned from, you know, a mistake that I learned from essentially, right? Or something I regretted, but turned out being a really valuable lesson. It's tough because I've been really blessed in this business. You know, I've done a lot of things the right way and I've been really, really lucky. So, I mean, I haven't actually ran into a situation like that. I don't think. I mean, I guess here's what I'll tell you. Here's a good one. You know, when I started a publishing company and I really didn't want to as I told you, I don't even really believe in the fundamentals of how the business operates. And my manager essentially made me do it. And he made me start the publishing company. And so then he he went and signed this young man that was, hanging around us. And I'd been hanging around since the days of working at youth programs that he was popping up at, and I was helping him with stuff, and we were friendly. And then the next thing you know, my manager's like, I'm gonna bring it to you, to your company. Anyway, the point is he forced my hand on this company I really wanted nothing to do with. And I watched that young man, who's now obviously, he's not that much younger than me. Anyway, he went from, riding a bike to walk his daughter home from school to pushing big whips. So, and, it was sort of like my manager looked at me and look, yeah, you're so worried about taking from somebody, look what you did. Look what happened to his life, and it was kind of like, oh shit, you're right. Maybe I'm so I don't want to, I want everybody to retain all of their ownership, that I don't almost help anybody, where it's instead I should, not that I don't help anybody for free. I help people. That's essentially what I do. But when you really enter into that relationship and you make that commitment of business between somebody, you work a little bit harder, there's a little bit more of a commitment, Drake knew, everybody knew, and things started happening, and he never looked back. And that was the real lesson I learned, where I was it speaks to my own politics, but it's also just, in this business, you want to share those opportunities as much as you can.
Yeah. Speaking about politics, your sense of community is present in your public voice. Out of all the members of the OVO crew, you've been very vocal about being pro-Palestinian. You've supported the indigenous community, from jump, from when I first found out about you, and you always stood at the forefront of your social media presence with these. I wouldn't say causes, but these realities that we deal with, which are all interlinked,
Yes.
At what age did you develop, or what instance in your life did you develop the awareness of our settler identity on this land? And how, what made you feel this way in general about humanity,
I'm not a ton of things, I would say, I learned a lot of lessons when I was young, as we all do. My best friend in the whole world from when I was 5 years old was Jamaican, and so it was me and my Jamaican best friend, and I grew up in his home as much as I grew up in mine, and that gave me a lot of perspective in grade 2. And he was like, that teacher's racist, she hates me because I'm black. And I was like, oh, what? She can't hate you because you're black. She's a teacher. That's impossible. That doesn't make any sense. How could that be true? I learned those lessons and faced those realities as, a Caucasian person very young, right? My father is an Arab, and it was very opinionated about things and politics, and how it impacted him and his life, and how it restricted him and his vision. And so that was relevant to me, and I understood that, right? I knew my name was different than everybody else's, and I understood that. Although I didn't look different than anybody else, I was, afforded that luxury in this white supremacist world. But I learned those lessons same way in different ways. My mother's very spiritual, and I asked a lot of questions when I was young. In math, I asked questions in math in grade 1 that I know now you're not supposed to ask, because the math teachers can't answer them. You start breaking down some shit at a different level when you ask those questions. And I started to ask those questions in life too, who owns this land? Owns what land? How deep? How high? What, the air too? That doesn't even make any sense. How do you own something? How do you own this rock? How do you own this tree? What does that even mean? And there was a book that was read to me in grade 4 by my teacher, Mr. Willett, actually, I remember his name. And I can't remember the name of the book. I always think about the book. And it was an indigenous book, and telling indigenous stories and spirituality and Turtle Island and Creator and all of these things. And I just fell in love with that as a young kid. The Creator and the concept of Turtle Island, that made sense to me. That I could understand. My father was raised incredibly Catholic, and he's Catholic Lebanese and Catholic Irish as well. And so he was raised so Catholic, he almost revolted against religion. And my mother similarly she was more of a hippie than she was religious. She was spiritual before she was religious. So when I understood or got introduced those ideas at a very young age from an Indigenous perspective, they were really intriguing to me. And just growing up in Canada and having the luxury of being able to go up north and experience the outdoors of Ontario, that was the language I understood. So it's really close to home for me. And I grew up with Indigenous friends, and I just try myself. A lot of that to do with my sister and who she is and how she raised me as well. I just try to educate myself and better myself every day about life and people and why people are harmed and how to make sure they aren't being harmed. And that's sort of across the board. And you really have to look internally and reflect. And that starts, whether it's feminism and racism and all the way up to you have to unpack everything. You can't just pick and choose. And so as I do that, I look at the ground and the land I'm standing on it and recognize, an apartheid state that I live in. So it's as I'm critical of others around the world, right? So welcome to the journey of self-discovery, but I think we're all on it, and I'm all on it. I'm always learning as a person about life and who we are. And I think also as I think that's, gosh, I had another point. Sorry, I'm just rambling.
No,
Anyway,
you're not rambling at all.
No, I
think-
care about all this stuff a lot, I guess, and it's super important to me. And
leading
I
into
just
like
learned those lessons as a young kid, and I don't know why, but maybe those are the reasons.
leading into the last question before I open it up to the students, this way of thinking, this belief that you have, or this realization that you had, has led you to the 40 Foundation and the Justice Fund that you're working on currently. And I know it's a big thing, but I'd love for the people here to know, like, is this something you want to turn into your legacy outside of music? Is this something you want to, the hip hop ethos of each one reach one? Is that something you want to do, simultaneously reach out into the community and help and give them these studio boxes that they can record in, but at the same time mentor a small group of people to pass down the gems that you have? Like, what's your ultimate goal with that part of your legacy?
To be honest with you, it's like more self-serving. Like, this is my favorite thing to do, teaching, explaining stuff, putting things into a way where other people can understand them, really complex concepts where you sort of have these aha moments of like, oh, wait, no, I get it. Oh, yeah, cool. Again, that makes perfect sense. Like, that's what I really enjoy. And so working in community in the past in my life was probably the most fulfilling time for me. And I want to get back to that place where I can sort of set up an infrastructure that is helping, empowering kids, giving them tools, doing technical nerd stuff that I love doing with my free time. And then, like, if I put these cases, in 20 community centers and within the city of Toronto, now it's like, yeah, I got like 20 places to go on Sunday. Like, you know what I mean? I got like 20 places to stop in and hang out and like check up on everyone and contribute and share information and inspire and create more art and create more positive energy. And so anyway, those are sort of like the goals behind that for me. If it ends up being a legacy, like, incredible. But definitely I want it to be sustainable. I don't want to like introduce something into community that then disappears very quickly. I want to have these things last, and I suppose create legacy from that perspective. Yeah, 100%.
Before I pass it down to the students, to you, what's the future of OVO Sound? Do you hope to executive produce projects for other artists like you did for Drake? Do you have the creative energy to do that? And if so, who have you not worked with that you'd like to work with in the coming future? And you have access to everybody, but who would it be that you would really like to work with?
Yeah, that's a tough question. Like, I really worked with all the dreams of mine came true already.
You did the bucket list, bro.
I mean, just like Aaliyah and Sade off the top is like that was the bucket list, and it wasn't even a fathomable or practical one, and I achieved it. So I can't even disrespect my original legacy bucket list by creating a new one. You know, it's like I somehow, some way achieved that. And, you know, with what Drake has accomplished and the access I have to him as a rapper, you know.
Oh, you got muted. Sorry,
there we
you got
go.
muted.
You know, with all the people that I've had the ability to work with, you know, and because of I have access to Drake and he's my partner in music, it's almost what I always tell people is if I were to make a song for so and so that's good enough for that other legend, whoever it may be, then I probably should have given it to Drake. Like that's sort of my position, you know, is like if I'm going to work that hard on something, if I was just throwing stuff away, cool, I'll throw it to whoever. But I really focus only on working with him. So, I mean, to be honest, I guess to answer that question in a very narcissistic way, I kind of maybe want to do my own album at some point would be the next thing for me.
Okay.
And
that's not narcissistic at all. We need that.
Says Narcy.
Says the narcissist. The last joint that really blew my mind that you did was the Champagne Poetry joint, where you know it's when you look at the credits on that song, you know it's Masego, it's you, it's Oliver, and there's somebody else credited on it. What's
Manish?
Manish. You know, and that's like, you know, I got more slaps than the Beatles. The Beatles are on that joint in a way. So how does the process of a song like that happen? Because the ending of that song, the last like 30 seconds is one of my favorite works of yours, because it really shows like your deconstructive style that you have with your work. You've created the style of music that allows the artist to shine through, but you maintain the sonics of your music in a very unique way.
You want to know the story? I'll tell you the story. I never told no one this one.
Please.
So Oliver, I think, came with the idea of like the Masego piece, because you know it was out and around, and brought that to the table to flip, right? And into that first piece that I love you, I love you, I love you, right? Then that was that. Drake did his thing on it. Then Manish had done a piece of music, which was the second part. Right? So Manish had made that music and given it to Drake, and Drake had recorded some stuff on that. And then the boy called me over to his house at one point. I feel like it was one of the first times I'd gone over there since COVID. I think I remember like wearing a mask and sitting like on the other side of the room in the very beginning, and just to talk about like how we were gonna like, you know, move forward and what we're gonna do and yada yada. And he was like, yo, I really like these two songs, like if they could go together and like be a sick intro. And I was like, okay. So then I took the two songs and figured out how to like put them together and like get them sounding in the same key and all that, and transitioning them and doing weird stuff and taking pieces from this one and putting it on this one and pieces from this one and putting it on that one and adding parts in the beginning of this one to fill it out and yada. And then I made the whole beat for the end of it. So the third section, then I made that to close it. I mean, that was it. So that's how it happened. But it was like a group effort, right? Like everybody involved did a great job. So classic joint.
Yeah, it's really special song. Thank you. You know, you stay elevating. We appreciate you in this game in Canada, worldwide.
Thank you, my brother.
Thank you for coming and taking the time to be with us here, man.
Oh, come on. It's the least I can do. I love this. This is super fun for me. I told you that.
It's that IRAQAFELLA show, man. Peace.
Hey, yo, pass that real quick.
Can I give you these flowers while you can still smell them? No, they don't even sell them out in the stores anymore. You said you couldn't afford them, that's why I bought them for you, so you could water your new garden in your life. Can I roll up, roll up, roll up, roll up, roll up, roll up? Let me set you on fire. Then I might forget you. like my desire. Can I give you these flowers?
The IRAQAFELLA Show.
Thanks for tuning in to the IRAQAFELLA Show. Once again, I am Narcy. Please subscribe and comment below if you like what you heard and saw, and tune in next week. I'd appreciate that, you know what I mean?
Subscribe now.